More than 80 years since he went missing in action, a Utah Air Force pilot is finally home and has finally been laid to rest. Thanks for tuning in to Midday. I'm Maria Shilaos. KSL NewsRadio's Adam Small attended his funeral this morning at Hill Air Force Base.
After more than 8 decades, First Lieutenant George Frankie Wilson has returned home to the Beehive State.
I feel incredibly honored to be here, that they brought him home and we're able to say goodbye and be able to bring him to the proper burial.
Today, Lieutenant Wilson's granddaughter Nancy Maxim, as well as the rest of their family, were finally able to say goodbye at a full military funeral.
It is incredible to feel family. I feel like my dad and my grandpa are here with us today, and it's just great to have everyone come together for this event. I just never thought it was going to happen.
Lieutenant Wilson was killed during a bombing mission in July of 1944. The plane he was flying was hit by anti-aircraft fire, leaving him mortally wounded. 7 of his 8 crew members parachuted out, but there was only one chute left between him and his last crew member. Knowing he was likely going to die as he was, Wilson gave his chute to the last crew member. All 8 of them survived, but Wilson went down with the plane in northern France. Brian Wilson is his grandson.
It just makes me extremely proud. I feel like I would do the same. He obviously was a cool guy being a pilot and being a leader. And from reading the letters and the respect his crew had for him, and to be mortally injured, but to still guide the plane and protect those guys and give them a chance to get out, that just gives me chills.
It took investigators until 2019 to be able to find the crash site and until November of last year to confirm Lieutenant Wilson's remains were there.
He's a hero.
He's a hero.
I feel so proud that he's my grandfather, what he did, what he sacrificed, and it just makes you proud to be American.
Lieutenant Wilson will now lay to rest next to his parents in Bountiful. Adam Small, KSL News Radio.
Just how common are these kinds of discoveries? How many military service members are still missing from World War II? Derek Abbey is the president and CEO of Project Recover, a group dedicated to locating the bodies of MIA military members and bringing them home. And I spoke to him about these kinds of situations and how the process works. It is amazing for someone like me to hear that someone has been recovered after so many years of being lost. Can you just talk about that feeling and that experience?
Boy, I wish I could accurately put into words what those feelings are. As you can imagine, it's a combination of all sorts of different feelings. Many times it takes years to locate some of these sites and then conduct a successful recovery to collect the individuals that might be associated with those sites. But it's a flood of emotions once you find a site, just knowing that the families are soon going to have answers to questions that they've held for just far too long. And so obviously there's a lot of joy in the success of the discovery, but then it's a solemn moment knowing that this is a grave site of somebody that was lost so long ago. And then anything and everything in between. But it's definitely very, very special. And it's something that, it's the whole reason that we do this work.
Describe for us what goes into finding a person's remains when they've been missing for so long.
Yeah, I like to say that this work starts in the bottom of an archive, in the basement of an archive somewhere, many times in the Washington, D.C. area, but it could be anywhere. So we'll build out cases and add as much information as we can to cases so that we can condense a search area, whether that's in the water or on land. And then we'll work to get the people and the equipment that's needed to conduct a search to that part of the world, wherever that loss might have been. And then that search takes place. Believe it or not, the technology that's advancing underwater search capabilities is advancing more rapidly than some of the land efforts. We're doing some amazing things with underwater technology and automated underwater vehicles. But in the underwater environment, they'll use AUVs or automated underwater vehicles with mostly side scan sonar and other sensors to map the ocean floor. And then we'll investigate points of interest that might be associated with a crash site or something like that, determine if it is a crash site, the crash site that we're looking for. And from then on, it's a documentation of that site in preparation for excavation. If it's land, many times it's just boots on the ground doing a basic search of wide areas looking for these sites. If it's a aviation site, it's a lot easier to locate than maybe an execution site or a burial site or something like that. But then the same thing, once we find a site, we'll start documenting that site in preparation for excavation. And then when an excavation occurs or a recovery effort, it's an archaeological process, whether it's underwater or on land. The site is gridded out, and each grid is excavated. So we'll take all the sediment and materials from that grid, whether it's underwater or using a vacuum to bring it up to the surface, or on land, we'll just move it to a screening area where all that material's gone, goes through quarter-inch screening. And then we're looking for any potential human remains, osseous material, artifacts that can assist with identification, whether that's dog tags, watches, rings, things like that. If it's a multi-crew aircraft, potentially life-saving gear that can tell us which part of the aircraft this individual is from. And from there, a chain of custody is established, and that's processed through the nation that we're working in, all the way back to the Defense POW MIA accounting agency to start the identification process. So that a blind identification is done in one of those labs using all sorts of science and technology. Most people think about DNA these days, and that is used on a regular basis. But it also includes analyzing skeletal remains, like if the person had a broken arm, and that arm shows a sign of being broken. That's information. Those artifacts that I mentioned earlier. All that information is used to triangulate and come up with a 100% solution that will help with an identification.
That is amazingly complex. I mean, I had no idea. How many military members are missing in action?
Yeah, when you go back to all the way back to World War II to current day, there's more than 81,000 American service members that remain missing in action from our previous wars. And the breakdown is often different than what people might think. That number is 72,000 from World War II, about 7,000 from Korea. And now, because of the incredible work that's happened in and around Vietnam, there's less than 1,600 that are missing from the Vietnam conflict. And then a smattering of other individuals related to Cold War losses or Desert Storm, Desert Shield. From our most recent conflicts, the GWOT era, we actually don't have any service members in uniform that are currently missing in action. But more than 81,000 going back to World War II, and that doesn't include training losses or people that might have been lost in operational accidents not associated with conflicts.
What would your message be to families of those, or even that person that's missing? What does it mean to you to try to find them?
Well, we believe that we at Project Recover, and I know other people that are doing this at the Defense POW MIA County Agency, we represent the American public community as a whole. And we as Americans make a promise to that individual and their families that should they go missing in conflict, that we're going to do everything that we can to bring them home. And war is chaotic. And so obviously there's more than 81,000 cases where that promise needs to be kept, but it doesn't have an expiration date. And we're going to keep on doing what we can to ultimately bring them home and provide answers to those families that have sacrificed the most.
Derek, I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me today.
Awesome. Thank you.
Derek says being able to bring families some closure while also honoring those who gave the ultimate sacrifice is indescribable. You can learn more about his organization and see how you can help by visiting projectrecover.org.